Another terrifying economic fact for everybody about the COVID depression here. This is in CNBC. As the economic fallout from the coronavirus pandemic continues, almost 1/3 of U.S. households, 32%, have not made their full housing payments for July yet, according to a survey by Apartment List, an online rental platform. About 19% of Americans made no housing payment at all during the first week of the month, and 13% only paid a portion of their rent or mortgage. That's the fourth month in a row that a, quote, historically high number of households were unable to pay their housing bill on time and in full, up from 30% in June and 31% in May. Renters, low-income, and younger households were most likely to miss their payments, Apartment List found. So listen to this. Many households have already spent their one-time stimulus check, the one-time $1,200 check, and the extra $600 per week in unemployment insurance used by many to cover essentials like housing runs out at the end of July. That means even more households could potentially miss their rent or mortgage payments in the coming months. We're already at 32%. We're already at 32%. What's that going to go up to when you get rid of the $600 per week unemployment insurance increase? And again, it goes away at the end of this month. What's that going to get up to? Over 50%? Over 50% of people unable to pay their rent or their mortgage? Over half the country? Is that what's going to happen? Over half the country can't pay their rent and can't pay their mortgage. I'm at a loss for words. We've never seen anything like this before. I don't know how many times I could tell you that. When you look at the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession in 2009, guys, even before COVID, we were kicking 2 million people out of their house, I believe, per month, which is higher than the height of the Great Recession. That was pre-COVID. Pre-COVID. What's going to happen when we're totally done with COVID, no more cases, which it'll be a while, by the way, before we get there. What's going to happen to all these people who can't make their payments? What's going to happen? Over 50% of the country, perhaps, is not going to be able to make their payments? You think we're seeing social unrest with this George Floyd situation? Just wait. Just wait. There will be social unrest, the likes of which we maybe haven't seen in this country before. When you have real unemployment over 20%, when you have a situation where maybe half the country or more can't pay the bills, I mean, that's a recipe for revolution. I don't want to sound hyperbolic about it, but like, all the distractions in the world cannot save us from the inevitable. I get it. You know, we live in the modern era. We got computers. We got Netflix. We're like plugged in a way that can distract us from all the problems of everyday life. But if over half the country can't keep a roof over their head, what do you think is going to happen? And just so everybody understands, I'm an idiot loudmouth YouTuber, and I'm talking about this. Do you think that Mitch McConnell, do you think that Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, do you think that Trump or his merry band of idiot advisors like Larry Kudlow, you think that they know that this is on the way and that this is the dire situation that we're in? You think they know? They have literally no idea. Trump goes out there every day now and brags about the V-shaped recovery. It's unbelievable. The stock market is bouncing back. The stock market, 92% of the stock market is owned by the top 10% of income earners. So you're bragging about the stock market, you're bragging about how the rich are doing, you're bragging about how the corporations are doing. Guys, we had a full corporate bailout. We had full corporate socialism at the beginning of this crisis. It was Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine 101. They looked at COVID, they looked at the impact, The Federal Reserve, the central bank, stepped in and said, we will do anything to prop the market up. $1 trillion in liquidity per day? Fine. Then you had the CARES Act, the COVID bailout. It was crumbs to the people, but really the point of that was the $5 trillion to corporate America to let them know, hey, we got your back. So we fully socialized corporate America, propped them up, and then now regular people are the ones who are getting screwed. Why didn't we just not bail them out and do a bailout from the bottom up instead of the top down? This is the same thing we did in 2008. We did a top down bailout, not a bottom up. Same thing now. We did a top down bailout, not a bottom up. Well, when you don't bail out from the bottom up, this is what happens. You're going to have 50% of the country who can't put a roof over their head. We've never seen anything like this. And to think about the fact that in the midst of this crisis, with a pandemic, they're like, no, we will not do Medicare for all. You're not going to get health care. There's a pandemic, bro. People can't pay the bills. They can't even put a roof over their head. Do you think they can afford medical bills if they get sick? Are you kidding me? Even the idea, even the concept of medical bills makes me sick just hearing it. Somehow other countries have figured out how to make sure everything's covered when it comes to your health. This country, nope. You might have to go bankrupt. You might have to go bankrupt because you got sick. That's the way it works. We've covered stories, what was it, $40,000 bill because somebody had COVID and they needed a lot of care. They're denying you universal health care in a pandemic. They're denying you universal basic income when you can't work because of the pandemic. They give you a one-time $1,200 payment that you went through in probably a week. If they don't make real concessions, I shudder thinking about what happens in the future. If they don't do real concessions, if they don't do Medicare for all, if they don't do universal basic income, I shudder at what's going to happen. This country's coming apart at the seams. It could come apart a lot worse than it already has. Because there's no way you can keep the facade going when probably over half the people will not be able to put a roof over their head. What do you want to do? You want to evict all of them? Or foreclose on all of them? You want to kick them all out of their place where they live? Is that what you want to do? You want millions and millions and millions and millions of new homeless people? Is that what you want to do? You know, I knew our government was totally corrupt and terrible, but I think I was naive in the sense that on some level I thought, well, they won't let it get beyond a certain point. Like, it won't get so bad that it threatens the fabric of the system, period. No, it will. And they're totally unaware. It absolutely will. They'll let it get as bad as possible because these guys are not there to represent you. They're not. They're given money to get elected by corporations and billionaires. So when they get in there, they represent corporations and billionaires. They don't care about you. And this is the result. This is the result. We have the solutions. That's the thing that's probably the most frustrating, is that we know what would work. We know how to fix these problems. We know how to make our country better. And they're not doing any of those ideas. They're not doing Medicare for all. They're not doing free college. They're not doing a Green New Deal. They're not doing a living wage. They're not ending right-to-work laws and having stronger union laws. They're not doing universal basic income. There are really clear ways. They're not getting money out of politics. There are really clear ways to fix all this stuff. They don't want to do it. They want to do it. And we're about to see unrest that, again, will make the George Floyd protest look like cakewalk, because this may surpass the Great Depression. If these numbers come to fruition, think about how the history books are going to look at this point in time. Think about how they're going to look back on this. Kind things are not going to be said about this era, about this generation. And I haven't even touched climate change yet, which is ecological disaster, which is civilization threatening. Haven't even touched that yet. Oh, that is a nihilistic laugh I just had if I've ever heard of one.